The first year of Fox Kids can be summed up in one word: experimental. If you look at the first 7 shows, they're really offbeat. From a cartoon based on a cheesy horror movie, to a preschool targeted show that looks and feels incredibly ahead of its time, to whatever the hell Pittsburgh Pigs was supposed to be. But in my opinion, the most offbeat show, the biggest outlier of the entire lineup, is Fox's Funhouse, a live-action game show. Now, that might not seem odd on the surface. Remember, Fox Kids' biggest hit ever was Power Rangers. But animation was the block's bread and butter, especially early on. After Funhouse left the airwaves, the network wouldn't greenlight another live-action effort until, well, Power Rangers. And Funhouse is an oddity in another way. Most of the block's live-action efforts were scripted shows, American tokusatsu, horror anthologies, suspense-filled dramas, but you almost never saw anything like game shows or reality shows. And again, it took a long time for them to revisit the genre. After Funhouse's cancellation, the next example would be the reality show Moolah Beach, and that doesn't run until the very last year of Fox Kids. But why did Fox Kids pick up Funhouse in the first place? What was the show's legacy? And what does it have to do with Yakko, Wacko, and Dot? Keep watching, and all will be revealed.
Fox Kids Club!
Kids Club.
It's time for Funhouse! And here it is! With crazy contests, super cool games, an awesome Grand Prix race, and an outrageous chase after thousands of dollars in cash and prizes. All on today's Funhouse! To the tune of 200 maracas, here's the senor that puts the fun in Funhouse, J.D. Ross!
Hola! Buenos dias, guys, and welcome to Funhouse. Today,
Fox Kids Club is only possible with the gracious support of viewers like you. You can support this channel on Patreon at patreon.com/JessMatthewsProductions, or by becoming a member directly on YouTube. You can also support me by commissioning a pick of the week, a single episode look at any Fox Kids, Foxbox, Jetix, or Hub show. Commissions are $50 to hulkyd@gmail.com on PayPal. So, Funhouse. Funhouse is a kids game show that premiered in September 1988, after the success of Double Dare broke open the genre. It ran for 2 seasons in daily first-run syndication, before moving to Fox Kids for an abbreviated 3rd season with that network's September 1990 launch. And to really cover it properly, we have to take a look at Funhouse as a whole, not just that brief Fox Kids run. And yes, we're going to take a similar approach for shows like Animaniacs, Tiny Toons, and Batman the Animated Series. Also, most of the footage that you're going to see is from that initial syndication run, largely because this show was never rerun, and the surviving footage of syndicated episodes look a whole lot better than surviving footage of Fox Kids episodes. Not being up against Ninja Turtles is a benefit. 2 teams, 1 boy and 1 girl, compete in messy stunts, Grand Prix races, and perfunctory quiz questions in order to run around in the gigantic funhouse at the end of the show. The game consists of 3 parts. The first is the stunt round. Each team competes in a physical stunt, like throwing things at a snowman in order to create its face, or making the world's messiest hot dog. Some of the stunts are recurring, like Dumpo, which is a hydraulic arm that dumps crap on you if you get too many questions wrong. There are 3 stunts in each round, one involving only the boys, one involving only the girls, and one involving both members of each team. After each stunt, a single question is asked to both teams. These questions might not seem necessary, but in actuality, they're one of a couple blue shell mechanics meant to keep the game close. The question is worth the same amount of points that the actual stunt is. So one team could win the stunt, but the other team could answer the question, and the score would be tied up. The Grand Prix round is where the other blue shell mechanic can be found. It's a race around the track in the studio. These varied from episode to episode. Sometimes it would be a foot race where you'd have to do a specific thing, like cram food down your costume, or other times vehicles would be used, maybe you'd have a go-kart or a makeshift submarine. You get points for winning the race, but that's not the entire goal here. You want to grab the plentiful tokens throughout, because it's possible for a trailing team to grab enough tokens in the Grand Prix round to make up lost ground and even win the game. After all that's done, the team that got the most points moved on to the Funhouse. In the Funhouse, the winning team runs around and attempts to grab all the hidden prizes within. There's several themed areas, like Balloon Lagoon, or, in later seasons, a gigantic water slide. Most of the prizes are linked to certain parts of the Funhouse, but one prize, designated the Power Prize, is hidden in a certain place in the Funhouse and is typically the biggest prize to be won that day. Your host is J.D. Roth. This is his first major TV hosting gig, but not his first role on television by a long shot. He began acting in commercials at a very young age, and ended up on Star Search before guesting in shows like Tales of the Dark Side. This was all before he graduated high school in 1986. Now, Funhouse is a big deal, but his first major TV gig may well have been even bigger. Roth was considered a finalist for the role of Wesley Crusher in Star Trek The Next Generation, the role that ultimately went to Will Wheaton. Still, this was a very good consolation prize, because at just 19, he is now the youngest person to ever host a game show. For the syndicated series, the crucial role of sidekick, announcer, and butt monkey would be filled by John Tiny Hurley. Hurley didn't have the classic announcer's voice, unlike a Rod Roddy or a John Harvey.
Well, Fahisha and Derek, you could cause an earthquake on your way up to the greenhouse. All these flower petals look the same. Pull the right one to find the prize tag that wins you both. A Snow Force entertainment package from SLM Action Sports, featuring super cool black snowboards.
In fact, he was loud and grating, seemingly by design. Tiny would frequently participate in skits, and would even be involved in Funhouse runs at the end of each show. The show also features two actual cheerleaders, twins Jacqueline and Samantha Forrest, billed on air as Jackie and Sammy. They're not just eye candy, though they certainly provided plenty of that. They served as general assistants to the contestants, helping out with stunts in the Grand Prix round. The show was created by Bob Saenz. Saenz was a veteran of the 70s and 80s game show scene. His most notable credit prior to Funhouse was as co-producer of the 1980s version of Let's Make a Deal. Joining Saenz as executive producer was Scott A. Stone. Stone was a relative newcomer to the genre, working with Saenz on the $1 million Chance of a Lifetime, which was one of the many game shows that sprung up in the wake of Wheel of Fortune's runaway success in syndication. Funhouse is one of the earliest shows from his production company, originally named Stone Television, later Stone Stanley Productions, and now Stone & Company Entertainment. So that's Funhouse in a nutshell. But the story goes deeper, and to really dig deep into this, we have to look at the show that made all of this happen in the first place. We have to talk about Double Dare. I'm not going to go into full detail on the creation of Double Dare. For that, I urge you all to check out Pop Arena's fantastic Knickknacks entry on Double Dare. You can find a link in the description below. But I really do need to talk about it, so here's the Cliff's Notes. In the mid-1980s, the cable channel Nickelodeon was in the final stages of a transition. It began life as a cable riff on PBS's kids programming, a loss leader to draw parents to its sister stations, the Movie Channel and MTV. The network was not successful. Part owner Warner Communications would run into financial trouble when its Atari division ignited a video game industry crash. Warner would sell MTV, the movie channel, and Nickelodeon to Viacom by 1985. New channel president Geraldine Laybourne would move away from the original educational focus. Nick became advertiser supported. Animated programming would be added to the schedule, and the channel's brand identity would adopt a fun-for-you image based around its only true success. Canadian import You Can't Do That on television. You Can't was a sketch comedy for kids, starring kids, whose most iconic element was green slime that could rain down on the cast if they said, "I don't know." Nick's major project for 1986 would take You Can't's messiness and run with it. The result was Double Dare. This was a quiz show with a Nickelodeon twist. If the team didn't know the answer to a question, they could dare the other team to answer it, and the other team could answer for double the cash, or they could double dare the question back, at which point the original team could answer for quadruple the money, or, and this is where that Nickelodeon twist comes in, take a messy physical challenge. The winner of the game got to run the obstacle course at the end of the show, a life-size version of the board game Mousetrap, where kids could pick a giant nose, run a massive hamster wheel, go down the Sunday slide, you name it. Double Dare became not only Nick's highest rated show, but the highest rated show on all of cable television. It made Nickelodeon. In the long term, Double Dare was the first in a string of hits that set the channel on a path to challenge, then overtake, traditional broadcast kids TV. But in the short term, its success was enough that the cable network ported the show over to broadcast television, with a run on local stations, mostly Fox affiliates, kicking off in February of 1988. This is actually really important for our purposes, but we're going to get back to that. One thing to understand in the television business, if you have a major hit on the level of Double Dare, producers are going to act like lemmings to cash in on the fad. He-Man led to every action figure on toy shelves getting a cartoon. Ren and Stimpy got so hot that even Disney, I repeat, Disney, made a clone. And Tiny Toon Adventures, as good as it was really WB's attempts to capitalize on two prior success stories, Disney's DuckTales and Jim Henson's Muppet Babies. So it should come as no surprise that Double Dare invited a host of imitators. There was I'm Telling, Haim Saban's attempt to turn the Newlywed Game, the Newlywed Game, into a kid show, or Finders Keepers, an attempt from Nickelodeon itself to make that Double Dare lightning strike twice. It very much didn't. Of the spate of kids' game shows that premiered in the wake of Double Dare, Funhouse is the most successful imitator, and the closest to Double Dare in look and feel. In fact, I'd best describe it as Double Dare but bigger. The messes are bigger, the set is gigantic, the prizes are lavish. It's a lot bigger all around. But while Funhouse is very, very close to Double Dare in tone, it's not an exact copy. I think the best way to describe it is that in format, it's kind of the inverse of Double Dare. Whereas Double Dare is, at its core, a quiz show with stunt elements to liven things up, Funhouse is a stunt show with quiz elements to liven things up. What I mean is, Double Dare's meat and potatoes are the trivia questions, and the physical challenges and obstacle course are there to spice things up. Funhouse is all about the stunts, typically far more elaborate and messy than you saw on Double Dare. And it could do that because of who was backing the show. Nickelodeon, before and even immediately after Double Dare, was not a juggernaut, and neither was its parent company. Viacom at the time was best known as the owner of some very old, if well-loved, sitcoms, a few cable systems and TV stations, and the small but growing cable network divisions that included MTV, Showtime, and Nickelodeon. It wouldn't be until after Sumner Redstone's National Amusements gained control in 1987 that the company would embark on a significant growth spurt. In contrast, Funhouse was produced and distributed by Lorimar Telepictures, a television behemoth born from a 1986 merger between network television powerhouse Lorimar, famous for Dallas, Knots Landing, and Perfect Strangers, and Telepictures, the syndication giant behind People's Court, Love Connection, Thundercats, and the 80s Let's Make a Deal and the $1 million Chance of a Lifetime, which, as you'll recall, Signs in Stone worked on. Being a syndicated show backed by a large TV studio, Funhouse had some impressive production values. This enabled Funhouse to be bigger than its competition in almost every way. I mean, just look at that set. It's gigantic. Whereas Double Dare originally taped at the PBS station in Philadelphia, Funhouse taped at what was then known as the Hollywood Center Studios. That meant an actual, honest-to-God Funhouse as the obstacle course at the end of the show. Something that made Double Dare's random scattering of obstacles on the stage floor seem old hat. The prizes on Funhouse were also legitimately impressive, comparable to that of a regular game show for adults. Even bog-standard prizes like your Nintendo Entertainment Systems were for their Ultra Deluxe versions. Remember, Double Dare tended to top out at a trip to Space Camp. Funhouse also saw some sharp decisions as far as episode structure. In a great retrospective interview about Funhouse, Scott Stone spoke of having his shows tell stories.
But every single one of those games that Steven created had to have a story-driven element to it. Whether it was based on a nursery rhyme or something that kids had to do, it was all about what's the story behind it from beginning to end. That's a tough thing to do when you're really just saying, take a spoon and get the egg from here to there. It's like, no, that worked pretty well on Minute to Win It, but we added this whole other layer of we want to tell a story, and I've maintained that in pretty much every show I've done.
I don't think Funhouse is as successful as some of his other shows in that regard, but Funhouse pioneered something that sets him apart from their Nickelodeon competition: episode themes.
Shout ahead all this week. Sarah Gilbert from Roseanne and Benji Gregory from Alf are helping us, and I salute to the 50 U.S. states. All on today's Funhouse.
Episodes are frequently themed, with all of the stunts having something to do with each other. Tune in and you'd see Funhouse's salute to the 50 states, all of the stunts relating to New England. Or maybe you'd tune in and you'd get a snow day, or a chocolate day. These themes provide connective tissue between the stunts, and it helps make the show more than a random collection of, here's some stuff we're gonna dump on you. So what did I think of Funhouse? Well, I'd say it's a solid B. I do appreciate that it's not an out-and-out clone of Double Dare. There are some things here that Funhouse legitimately did pretty well, and the increased focus on stunts over questions certainly sets it apart. The set and prop design is absolutely fantastic, and the gigantic Funhouse is a visual treat. J.D. Roth does an acceptable job as host. He's a little stiff, and his rapport with the other staff members does need some work, but he's also 19. To his benefit, Roth is good at moving the proceedings around, which is the number one task of a game show host. And his biggest asset, I think, is his youthful energy. Is he as good as Mark Summers? No. But Mark Summers, in my opinion, is a top 5 game show host of all time. It's an impossible comparison to make. I think Roth does fine on his own merits. But there are some pretty weak elements to the show. I'm not entirely sold on the Grand Prix round. I just don't think it's an interesting watch. And while the tokens do work at keeping the game level, it also sometimes obscures the actual result of the race. I also think the Funhouse itself needs some work. A good game show final round, in my opinion, thrives on tension. Either natural tension created throughout the show itself, like Final Jeopardy, or a tension that builds throughout the final round's length, like the $100,000 Pyramid's winner's circle. Double Dare's a great example of the latter. That show's iconic obstacle course finale had a defined route, starting out with easy obstacles and cheaper prizes, and eventually scaling in difficulty and stakes until you win that trip to Space Camp. Funhouse is not structured like that, and I think that's to its detriment. There's no set route to take in the Funhouse, so contestants just tended to run around the structure and grab prizes at random. And because the grand prize is also in a random spot, there's really no sense of accomplishment when it's attained. But ironically, I think the weakest part of Funhouse is its emphasis on mess. There's already a world's messiest game show, and that's Double Dare. You might notice that I've constantly compared Funhouse to Double Dare. But to be honest, the show has elements that are so close to the Nickelodeon show that you can't not compare the two. It gives Funhouse an identity that isn't its own, and it gives the show an image, an unfair one I think, of being a ripoff. Funhouse has a great game show in its bones, but it just gets lost in the goop. Funhouse proved very popular. In its first sweeps period, it was the #1 new show out of all kid shows launched that year. By all accounts, it even rated higher than Double Dare. And don't think Nickelodeon didn't notice this.
140 now. If the host of Funhouse hangs in a meat locker losing heat at the rate of 8 degrees an hour, how many degrees does he lose in 3 hours? It's worth 10. Quickly.
24?
Yeah, of course, 24. 8 times 3. Simple multiplication here. Oh. Hi there.
Funhouse's success kicked off a messy game show arms race. Funhouse had episode themes? Well, Double Dare now did them too. Funhouse was messier? Well, Double Dare would become super sloppy, upping the stunts and the slime. Funhouse is taped on a huge soundstage? Well, Nick just got dedicated space at the new Universal Studios Florida. Funhouse was popular enough that the show was licensed out to other countries. Most notable was the UK version.
It's wacky. It's fun. It's crazy. It's outrageous. Funhouse, a whole lot of fun. Prizes to be won.
It's a real crazy show where anything will go.
Funhouse, quiz is a race. Real wacky place.
Use your body and your brain.
If you want to play the game.
It's time for Funhouse. Wacky contestants, messy games, the Fun Car Grand Prix race, and a crazy chase to win lots of prizes. Now here's the guy that puts the fun in Funhouse, Pat Sharp.
It was nearly a crash landing, but no, we did okay. The only way to start your tea time has begun here on the Funhouse.
Launching in 1989, this actually lasted much longer than the US original, lasting on air until 1999, long after both Funhouse and Double Dare were canceled in the US. Hosted by Pat Sharp, and I gotta say, great hair don't change a thing. It hews pretty close to what we got here. I actually do prefer this version, mostly because Pat is a great host. He's something closer than the Mark Summers Big Brother archetype, and he has a lot more polish, and I think those are two huge benefits for his version of the show. In the US, Funhouse was merchandised to bits, to an even larger degree than Double Dare. There was a board game, given away in copious amounts as a consolation prize on the game show. There was a video game, Kind of. It used the name and the likeness of J.D. Roth, but the gameplay is not based on the show at all, and it's a horrible game to boot. And for whatever reason, there was a fitness video. Yes, I'm totally serious about this. Funhouse was originally distributed by Lorimar, the same company that distributed the Jane Fonda workout videos. And there's a bizarre origin story to this.
So the not so interesting story, but a true story, is I was flying home from the NATBE convention, and I was sitting on a plane next to a lovely woman named Julie LaFond, and we just started talking. And she ran the Jane Fonda workout empire. So I said, hey, maybe she'd like to do a kids Funhouse video. Is there, she do a kids video. And she loved the idea. So that was literally, it was just like talking on an airplane. And the next thing we know, we're in the studio with Jane Fonda and JD doing this exercise video.
And yes, that Lorimar connection extended to other Lorimar shows. On the sitcom Perfect Strangers, there was an episode during that show's 4th season called Games People Play, centered around Larry and Balky's appearance on the game show Risk It All. While it's not actually Funhouse, the set doesn't appear and Larry and Balky are, of course, adults, it is a messy stunt show like the actual Funhouse, and props and stunts from Funhouse are featured in the episode. And this crossover with Perfect Strangers actually went both ways, because Bronson Pinchot and Mark Lynn Baker actually did a couple promos for Funhouse as their Perfect Strangers characters.
Who's the host of Funhouse? George Bush. No. George Bush is the host of the White House. J.D. Roth is host of Funhouse.
Well, of course he is. Don't be ridiculous.
Funhouse is that great game show for kids.
Oh, yeah, I love the messy stunts.
Just like Dumbo.
Piathlon.
Pinhead.
Don't call me Pinhead.
No, I wasn't calling you Pinhead. No, Pinhead is my favorite stunt on Funhouse.
Is it near the White House?
Yes, it is.
Funhouse, weekday afternoons at 4:30 on Channel 20.
But to go with Perfect Strangers' fictional adult version of Funhouse was an actual adult version of Funhouse. Premiering in the fall of 1989, we have College Madhouse.
These are students from some of America's finest colleges and universities, showing exactly what they learn every week on the game called College Madhouse. This week's challengers, the Razorbacks of the University of Arkansas and the Longhorns of the University of Texas. And now, here's the Dean of College Madhouse, Greg Kinnear.
Well, this week and every week on College Madhouse, teams from 2 of America's top universities and colleges compete in a battle of brains and brawn, featuring some outrageous physical stunts and a lot of challenging questions, which we have coming up. At the end of the game, the winning team gets to go through the College Madhouse right back here.
A version which swaps out the kids for college students. It's hosted by Greg Kinnear in what I believe is his first major television work. Kinnear would go on to be the first host of E's Talk Soup, then would host NBC's Later before transitioning to an acting career. The off-camera announcer for this version is Bo Weaver. He's best known overall as an incredibly prolific announcer for local TV, and he was the first voice heard over UPN when it launched in 1995.
Welcome to the first night of the first network for the next century, UPN.
But he also has some animation experience. best known as the voice of Superman in the 1988 Ruby Spears effort, and Reed Richards in the 1994 Fantastic Four cartoon.
Doom! Show yourself, you coward! Where's Susan?
If I can defuse its detonator.
Hey, you heard the lady, Stretcho. Time's so wasted.
There are a few major changes in this version, mostly for the better. Instead of duos, College Madhouse would have teams of 4, 2 guys and 2 girls. The stunt rounds remained mostly the same, but the Grand Prix round was nixed in favor of the College Madhouse Finals. This would be a speed round in which the contestants would face off against each other as Kinnear would ask rapid-fire trivia questions. The requisite messiness is satisfied as the team member who answered the question correctly gets to pie their opponent in the face. This is more fun to watch and more exciting than the frankly boring race around the track that Funhouse used. Even better, they fixed the Funhouse! The basic gist of the final round is still the same. The winning team gets to run around the Funhouse, here called the Madhouse, for 2 minutes collecting tags. All 4 members would get 30 seconds to make their own run. And unlike Funhouse, the tags are cumulative. The grand prize is not in a random spot, but it's won if the winning team gets all of the tags before time expires. This gives the round a clear and concrete goal. There's something to root for. It's not just watching somebody randomly collect things for 2 minutes with no rhyme or reason. However, while the structure is better, the tone isn't. Considering we're working with college students here, they made a decision to up the raunch. Maybe not as bad as it might have been if it were later in the decade when South Park and Attitude Era WWE ruled pop culture, but the first stunt on the first episode I watched had the guys stuff cream balloons into skin-tight superhero costumes that the girls were wearing. And it really just seemed to be an excuse to have Greg Kinnear pat their butts. And it was not comfortable to watch.
Woo, okay, let's get started here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. They are still coming. 13, 14. That's it? 21!
What is it they say about the past being a mistake? College Madhouse only lasted 1 season, and that same season was the last season Funhouse had in syndication. So what changed? Well, trends in kids' TV don't last forever, and messy game shows for kids were on the way out. Funhouse was the last man standing of all of the imitators, and it was increasingly moved to earlier, less lucrative time slots. Even Double Dare, the show that started all of this, was losing steam, having left broadcast syndication while Nick's focus changed to newer, hipper game shows and eventually animated projects. There were efforts made to keep Funhouse going in syndication. There were trade ads for the 1990-91 season in an attempt to woo stations, and the producers planned tweaks to add, I'm being serious here, an animation element to the show. Sadly, we'll never know what this hybrid cartoon/live action Funhouse would have been, because the show was withdrawn from syndication and picked up for Fox Kids for an abbreviated 3rd season called Fox's Funhouse. So at this point, why did Fox Kids pick it up? Why did we get Fox's Funhouse? Well, once again, we have to go back to Double Dare. Remember that it hit syndication in 1988. And who helped get that into syndication? Fox television stations. As we've stated previously, Fox did not just start investing into kids programming with Fox Kids. In addition to DuckTales, it helped bankroll the 1988 syndication runs of both Double Dare and sister show Finders Keepers. Nick even developed a prime time version for Fox, Family Double Dare, which had a 13-week run in 1988. So, if Fox was in bed with Nickelodeon, if Double Dare was a big part of its early years, then why is Funhouse, and not Double Dare, the game show on the first Fox Kids Saturday morning lineup? All indications point to some sort of a dispute between Fox and Nickelodeon. Family Double Dare was in fact renewed for a second season on Fox, but plans were scrapped at the last possible minute. According to Double Dare host Mark Summers, Fox was insisting on themed episodes involving things like Playboy Playmates and Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders. Remember, Double Dare is aimed to children. These are bad ideas. According to Mark, Nickelodeon president Geraldine Laybourne understandably balked at these plans, and the partnership collapsed. Now, this is Mark's account, so we're not entirely sure this is the full truth. But it's safe to say that something happened between the two parties, because the Fox-backed syndicated version came to an end not long afterwards, and the family format became the main format for Double Dare on Nickelodeon shortly thereafter. So we know why it's not Double Dare, but why did they pick Funhouse to begin with? Again, I don't have any information on the specifics, but remember, the early Fox Kids lineup was not assembled by Margaret Loesch, who still had to sit out her Marvel employment contract. My guess is that the Fox executives remembered that they had a big hit with Double Dare, figured that a show like that would fit, and they made a deal for Double Dare's nearest competitor, which is Funhouse. So Fox's Funhouse ended up being the show that concluded the first ever Fox Kids Saturday morning schedule on September 8th, 1990. And significantly, it was also the first ever weekday Fox Kids show, because intended flagship Peter Pan and the Pirates missed its launch.
It's a special week on Fox's Funhouse. You'll see your favorite stars as you've never seen them before. Let's get messy. It's the craziest, wildest, and the sloppiest ever. Celebrity Week starts Monday on Fox's Funhouse.
So, it's essentially more Funhouse, but a few changes were made for the Fox Kids version. The most visible change is the announcer. Tiny is out, replaced by MC Mike, real name Michael Chambers. If you're an aficionado of 80s movies, you might recognize him. He's better known as breakdancer Boogaloo Shrimp, one of the stars of two of Canon Films' most notable entries, 1984's breakdancing epic Breakin' and its gloriously named sequel released 7 months later, Breakin' 2 Electric Boogaloo. Mike gets to show off his rapping skills at the beginning of each episode.
You better close your mouth, don't even smile, cause the crazy two fairies going wild. They're pulling teeth like dentists do. You better watch out or they might get you. So, stick around, it's time to play. We're having fun. On today.
The set has been made over for this new season. Memphis group design has been downplayed for something closer to, for lack of a better word, cartoon industrial. The Funhouse itself has a new layout. Contestants now start the round at the top of the Funhouse, entering the course through its giant water slide. One other change makes it over from college Madhouse. For the after stunt questions, the contestant who answers correctly gets to pie their opponent. Otherwise, the show is basically the same as it was in syndication. The Grand Prix round is still there. The existing Power Prize setup is still there. Really, you put the pies in and you didn't take any hints from how College Madhouse did the bonus round? Huh. Unfortunately, perhaps the biggest change was a very sad one behind the scenes. Creator Bob Saenz passed away between the second and third seasons. Every Fox episode ends with a dedication in his honor. I can't imagine Fox had particularly high hopes for this one, nor did it really have a chance either way. Like Pittsburgh Pigs, it was right up against CBS's Hour of Turtle Power. But here's the thing, success might not have been the point of this. Fox's Funhouse was filler, quickly forgotten filler, as it was pulled from the schedule in April in favor of Swamp Thing. But even this filler show is significant, simply because of what it represented. Funhouse brought the Warner Brothers to Fox Kids.
It's time for Animaniacs.
Not you guys. We'll get to you. Go back in the water tower. So, how? Well, remember how I said Funhouse was a Lorimar Telepictures joint? It actually wasn't one for long. In 1989, midway through Funhouse's first season, Lorimar Telepictures was acquired by Warner Communications. At that time, the parent company of Warner Brothers. Lorimar's Powerhouse Network television unit dovetailed nicely with Warner's existing TV unit, and WB actually kept both divisions separate until 1993. But perhaps the main benefit was Lorimar's syndication unit, the Telepictures half of Lorimar Telepictures. While Warner Brothers did have its own syndication unit, Lorimar Telepictures was far more prolific, with products ranging from off-network repeats of hits like Dallas, to first-run efforts like Mama's Family and She's the Sheriff, to court and game shows like People's Court and Love Connection, and even a decent kid presence with Thundercats and Funhouse. While the Warner Brothers shield would replace the Lorimar Telepictures crashing comets at the end of every former Lorimar show, in reality, the new Warner Brothers domestic television distribution was essentially Telepictures wearing shield drag. Telepictures would even resurface as the name for Warner's still active first-run daytime talk, court, and game show division, and Fox's Funhouse was one of its very first efforts. And believe me, they wanted you to know that Warner Brothers domestic television distribution was a thing. Every show would end with this spiel.
Merry Melodies is a production of Warner Brothers Animation and is distributed by Warner Brothers Domestic Television.
House is produced by Jeff Franklin Productions with Miller Boyette Productions, in association with Lorimar Television, and is distributed by Warner Brothers Domestic Television Distribution.
Babylon 5 is produced by Babylonian Productions, Inc. and distributed by Warner Brothers Domestic Television Distribution.
Funhouse is a Stone Television production. In association with Lorimar Television and distributed by Warner Brothers Domestic Television Distribution. Oi!
I think Tiny speaks for all of us here. The acquisition of Lorimar Telepictures dovetailed nicely with some plans WB was cooking up. Around the same time the deal closed, WB formally announced the launch of Tiny Toons, TUNES, a new show from a reborn animation department produced in collaboration with Steven Spielberg. That show emerged as Tiny Toon Adventures the same year Funhouse aired on Fox Kids. Tiny Toons was the big hit in syndication that year, an immediate success that established the new Warner Brothers Animation as a major studio. And that was good news for both WB and Fox, because Fox's own stations would be the lead station group for Tiny Toons. In fact, Relations between the two were warm, and even before the formal launch of Fox Kids, discussions were taking place between the two parties, engineered from Fox's end by network president Jamie Kellner. Fox had a national kids network that needed strong product. WB had strong product that could benefit from exposure on a national kids network. So in October of 1990, Warner Brothers and Fox Kids entered into a deal where Fox Kids would get 3 new shows, one each year, from WB Animation. The first show of the deal would be Tasmania for fall of 1991, followed by Batman the Animated Series for fall of 1992, and what would become Steven Spielberg Presents Animaniacs in fall of 1993. This deal was extended in May of 1991, ensuring that all of Warner's animated shows in syndication would migrate to Fox Kids by the fall of 1992, and these were subject to some pretty favorable terms for Warner Brothers. According to a 1996 filing for Fox Kids Worldwide, the holding company that Fox Kids was rolled into by this point, Fox Kids only got a distribution fee for any WB show airing on the block. All of the revenue derived from these shows would wind up in Warner Brothers' pockets. That's the sweetest plum. So what was Funhouse's part in all of this? Well, this never came up in my research. I don't have definitive proof, but to me, this feels all the world like WB testing the waters. Remember, Fox was the lead station group for Tiny Toons, and through that, it got hard data on how well Tiny Toons was doing, and thus the viability of any future WB shows. It's not hard to see Funhouse as a Trojan horse for WB to get the same hard data on the viability of Fox Kids. I definitely think the logic was, let's give Fox one of our cheaper, lesser shows now, see how it does, and then let's see if it makes sense to give Fox that Batman thing we're working on. And it worked. Fox Kids and WB Animation had a very beautiful partnership for a few years that made both sides stronger. But it also introduced complications, not the least of which is what happens when the guy who helped build Fox and who helped champion the Fox Kids Warner Brothers alliance now suddenly decides to go to work for WB to make their own Fox using its resources, animation included. Funhouse didn't figure into WB or Fox's plans, so when it left the air in 1991, it was gone for good. J.D. Roth did try his hand at that acting thing for a bit, most notably as the voice of Johnny Quest in the first season of Cartoon Network's ill-fated Real Adventures of Johnny Quest. But mostly he stayed in the world of hosting, picking up gigs on shows like Masters of the Maze and Walt Disney World Inside Out. Eventually, he moved into actually producing game and reality shows, with his first effort being, well, Moolah Beach, which we'll see on Fox Kids during its final season. Scott Stone remained in the game show business as head of Stone Stanley and later Stone & Company, continuing as a creator of offbeat, often physical game and reality shows. And some elements of Funhouse surprisingly pop up in later productions. Shop Till You Drop is, in many ways, another go at an adult version of Funhouse, just without the gross sexual harassment. The show was originally hosted by Pat Finn, and it's a lot of fun. Some elements of Funhouse and College Madhouse carry over, like the focus on stunts and the rapid-fire quiz round from Madhouse, but there's no mess here. I do like the creativity of some of these stunts. Like, here, identify the household appliances that we ran over. Much more notable, however, was a 1993 production the company did for, ironically enough, Nickelodeon, and in fact, I'd argue this is the true legacy of Funhouse.
Legends of the Hidden Temple. With your guide, Kirk Fogg. And here he is now.
Thank you very much.
Legends of the Hidden Temple is a stunt-heavy game show where pairs of kids compete against each other to earn the right to hunt for a treasure in the Hidden Temple. Hosted by Kirk Fogg and announced by a literal stone head, Olmec, who coincidentally sounds like D. Bradley Baker, Legends of the Hidden Temple is perhaps the most intricate of all Nick game shows, turning a soundstage at their Nickelodeon Studios complex into an ancient civilization Indiana Jones would feel right at home in. Peek beneath the Mayan dressing, however, and you'll find basically Funhouse 2.0, with many of the elements moved around, but with equivalents to the earlier show. Funhouse's DNA is all over Legends, with every part of the show having a Funhouse equivalent. The opening moat race? Simply a more elaborate and fun Grand Prix. The Temple Steps trivia round is a more focused form of the trivia questions in Funhouse. Episode themings return, and they're even heavier than on Funhouse, centering around the treasure that kids could find in the temple. And the Temple Games and the Temple Run are one-to-one on the stunts and Funhouse run of the earlier show. But the important change here is that Mayan dressing. Funhouse was clearly designed to be a riff on Double Dare. The stunts, the mess, the set design, that was quote-unquote borrowed from Double Dare. The show built its identity around the mess, the gross. But that was not unique to Funhouse. Double Dare did it first. And that devotion to something that was literally not really their own thing took away from what, underneath, is an extremely solid show. Legends gets rid of all of that. Instead of the messiness, we have tons and tons of lore, an elaborate set complete with a moat, and that Mayan theme that permeates every single inch of the show. Legends of the Hidden Temple is using the elements that worked in Funhouse, but instead of trying to be Double Dare 2, it's trying to be its own thing, and it's a better show for it. Look at any list ranking the Nickelodeon game shows, and Hidden Temple is way up there, often near the top. While Funhouse is forgotten with no home media release nor any legal availability on streaming, Legends of the Hidden Temple is revered and got several revivals. First as a 2016 TV movie on Nickelodeon, and then more recently as a game show revival for adults on the CW. And this, I think, is Funhouse's true legacy. A dry run for one of the most beloved kids' game shows of all time. Not half bad, I'd say. And the connections it made for Fox Kids were invaluable. The network's most important partnership, at least early on, gets its start here. I really do wish that Fox Kids did more shows like this, live action shows that were more than just horror or tokusatsu, but for filler, Funhouse didn't do half bad, did it? Coming up next, in response to Disney's then recently reissued Peter Pan, Fox Kids scoffs and goes, well, we have Peter Pan at home, launching perhaps one of the biggest animation flops of the 1990-91 season. If you want to learn more about Funhouse, Hosts at Home has an incredible hour-long interview where they interview J.D. Roth, Scott Stone, and Pat Sharp. I've used excerpts from their work in this video, but I highly encourage y'all to go check out the full interview. As you just saw, Funhouse contains multitudes, and even though I've tried to be comprehensive, there's even more to the show behind the scenes. It's well worth a watch. I have a link in the description. Thanks so much for watching. I didn't expect to make nearly an hour-long video on a show this obscure, but Funhouse directly led to a lot of the most beloved kid shows you undoubtedly watched back in the day. And I had to document that full impact. Once again, you can support me by becoming a member on Patreon or YouTube, by commissioning a pick of the week, or simply liking, subscribing, and clicking the bell for notifications. Peter Pan is next, and it's another big one, so I'll see you in Neverland.